Good afternoon. My name is John Davis, and I'm Chief Executive of CPA UK, the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association UK, and I'm delighted to have with me this afternoon the Chair of the Executive Committee of CPA UK, Ian Liddell-Grainger MP. Ian, welcome.
Thank you very much, John. Nice to see you on Zoom.
Likewise, and thanks for making time for this. As you know, we've been speaking to a range of colleagues of yours in both houses about the experience of being a Member of Parliament in these sort of strange and interesting times amid the COVID-19 pandemic. So it'd be really good to hear from you firsthand of what your experience has been of some of the innovations in Parliament so far.
I think it's been absolutely fascinating. I'm not entirely sure I'm up on it. As John knows, and most of my colleagues, I'm not very good at technical stuff at the best of times. But having said that, we've all learned a lot of lessons. What has been interesting from my point of view as a constituency MP is we've been able to spend a lot more time dealing with constituency matters, dealing with people, instead of having to rush from here to there. We can speak to them for longer. Done some Zoom meetings with them, which have been a little bit problematical, but also dealt with a lot of issues which I've had time to deal with in slow time, which has been good. I think Parliament has worked very well over the virtual net, whatever you want to call it, but it has done well. I think the Speaker has handled it well. The parliamentary authorities have been superb. And I think that it is something that if we ever had to do it again, we would fit into it fairly easily. The only problems have been is the technical issue. I know there's been problems with votes, but nothing great. But from the point of the CPA, we made decisions, John, as you well remember, very early on to make sure the staff were safe and also that everybody was working from home and you can continue to do the job as the chief exec. And there have been issues across the world where, Commonwealth countries are going through what we're going through, some more, some less. And certainly we watch it with our colleagues in Australia and New Zealand very closely because it has been a remarkable turnaround there. So I think that all in all, this has been an experience for us all, but it does show what a small world we live in, where we are living 24 hours with news, etc., from our colleagues who are doing, in most cases, a remarkably good job.
Yeah, I think it has been, as you say, fascinating to watch how our and other parliaments has adapted to this. I think, maybe we'll come back to the constituency point in a second, but I know you've been involved in some of the sort of work of the chamber, but remotely. And that's, any pluses or minuses so far from that experience?
Yes, there are. The pros are it is very easy to deal with because you know when you're going to be called, you know when you're going to speak, you know exactly what your day is, which is absolutely brilliant. There's no doubt that is great because you're not having to hang around in the chamber, you're not having to sit around doing nothing. You can't do much once you're in the chamber, you can't sort of sit and work too much. I mean, the downside is you can't get ministers in the same way that we would normally get because we're not voting personally. But also you can't intervene in the chamber in the sense you can ask a colleague to give way and do that. And I suppose the last thing, because I'm a great fan of business questions, because you can bring up anything you want. Now that we're having, it is a list, which is not quite so good. When you're in the chamber, you are bound to be called and you can, it's the one time the week you can get away with almost anything. But it has been good. And like I said in my first answer, I think the Speaker has handled it, Lindsay Hoyle has handled it brilliantly.
Yeah, and he, of course, is there present in the chamber. And, we've got, unlike some parliaments who've gone completely virtual, you've got this hybrid system where you've got some colleagues such as yourself who have been remoting in, you've got some colleagues in the chamber. But, I suppose it's a different experience depending on whether you're physically there or not, I imagine.
I wonder, John, because you and me and the entire team at the CPA, of course, are not in the house, so we don't know. But I would think being in the house, you know as well as I do, when there's people not in the house, it's a pretty soulless place. It thrives on people. It doesn't really otherwise. It's a Victorian Gothic monstrosity that isn't really very good at that. So I suspect it's fairly spooky. There aren't the staff there. There is virtually nobody there. So I think probably what we're doing now is the best we can do given that. But I think the Speaker being there is crucial. I think the Speaker trying to do this remotely from his Lancashire home would be extremely difficult.
Yeah. And if we look forward into a time when things are at least a little bit more normal and the restrictions are fewer, are there some of the things we're doing differently at the moment that you would like to keep or think would be a good idea to keep? You mentioned a bit more predictability is useful.
Mm. Well, I think from parliamentarians, yes. The Lords in the other end have the timescale, so they know when they're going to be speaking. And I think that's got to come in the House. It is ridiculous sitting there for hour upon hour. Yes, you've got to be there for the start speeches and the wind-ups, that's fine. But in between, why do we have to be there all the time? And also for questions, it's some of them are half an hour, some of them an hour. And if you take the ones at even hour, you then have quarter an hour topical questions, which are great. There's no problem with that. But it does mean, again, it's problematical. Unless you're on that list, you're standing up and sitting down. So you've wasted another hour of your day. If you want to do two sets or a statement, it could be up to 2 to 3 hours a day. So therefore, we could definitely change things. And this working from, I was a bit skeptical about it because I'm not a great disciplinarian, as you know, when it comes to dealing with my own stuff. But I have been so impressed by everybody. The CPA team, I mean, John, you know, it has been brilliant. And Helen and you and everyone else, you've done wonders from home. And I think that, you know, CPA, for instance, we need to think about this. Can we, instead of, as we do at the moment, have all our team in one room, and you're in the sort of the broom cupboard at the end, maybe, just maybe, we should sort of say, right, we'll hot desk more and have half the team working from home because they're all fairly local to London. And then we can not quite have everybody crammed in the way they are. And I know we have a breakout room, which is our committee room, but I think we can change that. And I think we should. It's proved that the internet and broadband, etc., is up to this. So let's use the technology.
Yes, I think you're right. And I think it's been a good forced learning experience to make us try things. And that's the only way sometimes we learn, isn't it? And adapt.
Absolutely.
Because you mentioned committees, I think the committees have been pretty quick to use some of this new technology. And again, for some quite positive things so far about that. You've been involved with one of them, I think, at least.
Yes, I'm on international trade. Now, it has been good. Sarah Champion is a very good chairman, and she's sort of flying along. I haven't done too many. That's the big trick. I think it's not because they are. It's not like being in the room, but you can hear what goes on as we're talking now. We're talking freely, but it's not quite the same, and it's a bit more mechanical than spontaneous. And that's partly because the speakers are trying to, the people we're talking to are trying to make it from their home and all the rest of it. But I think the main thing is keep it short, keep it precise. Don't try and push the boat out too much on obscurities because people are going to scratch their heads slightly because you can't come back on it, I think. And really say to people, right, this is what we're going to have. And this is how we're going to do it, and then go through it. I did a one for an all-parliamentary group last week. It was the energy studies, which I chaired. We had, I think, 91 on Zoom. And it worked well, but there was very iron discipline. The secretary, your equivalent, a guy called Matthew Gordon, used to be with Honeywell International, well-known company, did your job as sort of aficionado, and it was brilliant. And I sort of introduced it. And then we had an next person came in to do the Q&A, who was very good at technology, and it just was very, very disciplined. And it looked very good. Having said that, again, it was more mechanical than you wish, and it's harder for people to ask questions. But I do think we are embracing this. We're embracing it in the right way, which is committees and others can work. We don't want to try and reinvent the wheel of what we do, but would committees thrive outside in the virtual world? Very hard. It's better to be there one-to-one, the same as any of these things, John.
Yes. And indeed, Ian, one of the other intriguing things you said early on was that one of the upshots of this is you've had more time to be able to devote to constituency work, which is great. But I guess there are also challenges in doing that because you can't get out and about around your constituency very easily, I imagine.
Well, for me, it's a little bit easier, but I've done 20 years nearly as the MP. I think it's 19 and a bit. So therefore, they tend to know me for all my faults, and I tend to know them for all their faults. And I think between us, we sort of know. So when I ring people up, they know about me, and I tend to know about them. And I think that has been really useful because some of the big challenges, I have the Hinkley Point nuclear power station, which is a brand new nuclear power station being built. And that's been quite a challenge, making sure it continues for various reasons, and to make sure that people are safely looked after. We also have the biggest milk plant in the country, and that's obviously been a challenge. And we are really the home of fruit juice in the United Kingdom. I know we don't grow a lot of it here, but we make it in Bridgewater. And that's been an enormous challenge, keeping the people motivated, keeping them going, dealing with issues which can be from the schooling of key workers to making sure they get food. And I, in a way, I'm lucky. I have 3 smallish hospitals, and they work very, very well. So the staff there they've been brilliant, and so has the doctors, etc. And they've managed to get themselves sort of into quite a good place fairly quickly, highly resilient. What has been more tricky is getting what I call the workers that sort of look after Morrison's distribution, which we have, and people like that, which is a big supermarket, and making sure they are looked after. And that's been a little bit more tricky. They tend to work closer together. They are not such team players. They're on 3 shifts, of course the hospital is as well, but it's slightly different. So I think we've had those challenges. One of the most difficult, funny enough, because I represent rather a beautiful area in the west of the UK, is day trippers coming down and people who want to come to their second home, who've decided they'd quite like to come down and sort of camp on the moor. Well, we have no B&Bs, no tea rooms are open, there's no hotels, the loos are shut. We just don't have those facilities. And because we're a fairly small area, if something happens, it is a strain on our resources. And again, it's just, how much food can we stock in small supermarkets, what we have, to look after everybody. Yeah. So those are the sort of challenges, but I have spent time with them, talking to the police, talking to the councils. Normally it'd be 5 minutes, move on. Now it's, I can spend as long as we require to get the message across, and it's working.
Well, that's really interesting. It's good to hear. And I suppose that's one of the fascinating things for us involved in CPA, Ian, is that, of course, every place is different, even within the UK, as you said. But some of those challenges are familiar wherever they are, wherever our colleagues are across the Parliament. So again, as you know, we're looking at ways of how we keep sharing these kind of conversations with people, from whether it's in jurisdictions large or small, near or far, whether it's New Zealand or Canada, or whether it's Kenya, or whether it's wherever it might be in the Caribbean, overseas territories as well. And we'll certainly keep doing that. But thanks for your time today. It's really good to get your sense of how it is, and obviously we'll be staying in touch, and perhaps we can speak again as this interesting experiment in difficult times continues.
Brilliant, John. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks very much.